Hey, you guys, this is a video to tell you about our schoolwork for Wednesday, March 18th. I took my glasses off. Sometimes when I do that, kids say I look kind of funny. So I also look kind of bald in the video. I don't know how I feel about that, but I guess I'll survive with looking a little funny. So I'm going to guide you through everything on the checklist so you know what to do for the schoolwork. The first thing is math. Now, the next thing we're going to study in math is about how to read a clock. We're really lucky that we have clocks to read because throughout most of history, they didn't have clocks. They had to use the sun to try to tell time. But that does make it a little tricky if you're trying to have a meeting at a certain time or you're trying to meet up with friends at a certain time. It's a lot harder if you don't have actual clocks. So we're really lucky to have the clocks that we have. Now, this is my plastic clock to use for teaching. You notice the hands move around. Notice when I move the blue hand, the red hand also moves. Now, whenever I do this, we have a few secrets to keep, first of all. Do not tell Mr. Mata the secret. Got it? Shh. Hush, hush. Okay? Don't tell Mr. Mata the secret. I like to take the clock apart. Don't tell him. Here we go. We're going to take it apart because I think a big part of you understanding how to tell time actually lies with what a clock looks like inside. So there's four screws I'm going to take apart. You can see these four screws holding the clock together. I'm going to take those apart now. I'm almost done. Good thing I'm a fast screw taker offer. Okay. Here's the back of the clock. I'm taking off the cover. In the back of the clock, there are gears like this. Notice when I put one gear, what happens to the other one? It automatically turns, doesn't it? If I turn the black one, the gray one automatically turns. If I turn the gray one, the black one automatically turns. When I turn those gears, the hands of the clock are moving. You cannot turn one gear without the other gear turning. And when we're telling time on a clock, you cannot turn one hand without the other hand turning. That's important to understand. It's important to understand because kids get confused on the hour part of telling time. The hour part is the first part that you say when we're saying what time it is. If we're saying it's 7:30, 7 is the hour part of the time. And we write it like, give me just a second to put this last screw in. Don't worry, I'll provide some very entertaining and strange music for you while I'm taking this video. Okay, when we're writing 7:30, for example, we write a 7, 2 dots called a colon, and then a 30. This first part is called the hour. The second part is called the minutes. The hour on my clock, the hour hand is the red one. It's on a real clock, it is the short. I'll show you a real clock in a minute. It's the short one. It's always the short hand. The red hand on my clock goes with the red numbers. The blue hand goes with these tiny blue dots and then numbers. Um, when we're talking about 7:30, here's what it looks like on a clock. It looks kind of like that. And a lot of kids get confused because depending on the clock, it can actually be close to the 8. This one's a little messed up. I must not have quite put it back together right. It's a depending on the clock, it can look like it's pointing to the 8 when it's 7:30. I actually stopped the video for a second to fix my clock. This is what it's supposed to look like at 7:30. I think I kind of jostled the gear out of place when I took it apart. No wonder Mr. Mata doesn't want me to take the clock apart. I'm sure he doesn't care, actually. But anyway, this is what 7:30 looks like. Let's go back to 7 o'clock. This is 7 o'clock. This is 7:30. Now, some kids get confused because the little hand is pointing between the 7 and the 8. They're not sure if it's 7:30 or 8:30. And that's why you need to understand how the gears work. The gears work because whenever one hand turns, the other one turns. Whenever one gear turns, the other one turns. So you got to go think backwards in your mind. Rewind it. 7 o'clock. Oh yeah, the last o'clock was 7 o'clock. And then when I moved the minute hand, the gear for the red hand automatically started to turn too. And that's why it's not pointing right at the 7 anymore, because there are gears in here. So when the big hand starts moving, the minute hand, it's not going to change the hour, but it's slowly going to move the hour. So at 7:30, the little hand ends up between the 7 and the 8. Whenever the long hand is on the 6, we say 30, something 30. We got to think back what the last o'clock was, 7 o'clock. So this is 7:30. Now let's go back to 7 o'clock. Whenever a clock has the short hand pointing to a number and the long hand pointing to the 12, it's a new hour and we call it o'clock. New o'clock. Now, this is how we would write 7 o'clock. 7 ... colon, the dots are called colons, and then 2 zeros because there's 0 minutes. We're starting a new hour. We just started the 7 o'clock hour. We haven't gone anywhere, so it's 0. When there's 2 zeros, we say o'clock. 7 o'clock. Now, as we move along the clock, this is 7 o'clock. This is 7:01, 7:02, 7:03, 7:04, 7:05, 7:06, 7:07, 7:08, 7:09, 7:10. Most of you have gotten really good at counting by fives, and you'll notice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Every one of these big red numbers is a new counting by 5. For the long hand, remember this long blue hand is called the minute hand. It goes with the second part of our clock. How many minutes has it been? And it goes with these outer numbers on my clock. Well, you could actually count by 5s if you wanted. 5, 10, 15. Instead of counting every little dot, you can learn to count by 5s. Let's keep going. 20, 25, 30. That's why we say 7:30, because we started at 7 o'clock and slowly, 1 minute at a time, we inched our way around the clock until the minute hand got to the bottom, which was 30 minutes past 7, and that's why we say 7:30. It looks like this. One more time, if we were going to write that on a digital clock, like many of our clocks are nowadays, it would look like this, 7:30. So when we're telling time on a clock, to do o'clock, first you say whatever the little hand's pointing to, and the long hand is on the 12, then it's an o'clock. 5 o'clock. Let's do a new one. 8 o'clock. 10 o'clock. 2 o'clock. 4 o'clock. This one's kind of tricky. 6 o'clock. And of course, we write it with the number and then 2 zeros. That's how we write the o'clock numbers, right? 2 zeros right here means o'clock. Today we're learning o'clock and 30. So let's try some more 30s, then it's workbook time. Okay. Here's 8 o'clock. Here's 8:30. Here's 9 o'clock. Here's 9:30. Here's 10 o'clock. Here's 10:30. Here's 1 o'clock. Here's 1:30. Here's 2 o'clock. Here's 2:30. Again, kids often get confused when, if I show you a problem and say, what time is this? Kids often get confused. Is it 2:30 or is it 3:30? Because the hand is right in between them. You have to think back. What was the last o'clock that we had? Oh yeah, it would have been 2 o'clock. So we're on 2:30. Whenever it's in between two numbers, you're going to go back to the last number on the clock, which is always going to be the smaller number, except for when you're between 12 and 1, then it goes backwards to 12, even though 12 is a larger number. So it always goes back to the smaller number, with the exception of when it's pointing right here. Even though 12 is larger, you go backwards. So this is 3:30. This is 5:30. This is 9:30. This is, oh shoot, I don't know. Is this 10:30 or is it 11:30? When the shorthand is in between two numbers, you always go backwards, and it's always the smaller number. Unless it's right here between 12 and 1, then it goes backwards to the 12. So right here, it goes backwards to 10. It's 10:30. If it was between 12 and 1, like this, we would go backwards to 12 and say 12:30. Now, yeah, I think we're ready to try the workbook of this. Let's do a quick review. When the longhand is on the top, we say o'clock. First, we say what the shorthand's pointing to, then we say where the longhand's pointing to. 4 o'clock. 5 o'clock. When the longhand's pointing on the 6, it's something 30, and we find out what something it is by going backwards one number, not forwards. 5:30. 7:30. 8:30. When we're using this kind of a clock, 2 zeros means o'clock, and right here is how many minutes. So today, all of your questions are either going to end in 30 or they're going to end in 2 zeros. Because today we're just practicing o'clock and 30. Okay? Let's take a look at the workbook pages. Some more fun music, just like I promised, while I gather up my materials. All right, here we go. So on this workbook page, what you first have to do is say what time it is. So we're going to look at this little hand first. The little hand's pointing to 1. So I'm going to write a 1 and a dot dot. The long hand is pointing to the 12. Remember, that means o'clock, which we write as 2 zeros. This says 1 o'clock. This says 1 o'clock. Next question. We're going to read the little hand first. Now, if we use our eyes really close and imagine that this hand continues out, we can see it's right between the 8 and 9. So how do we know whether to write 8 or 9? We always go backwards one, okay? So it goes backwards to the 8. And remember, when the long hand is on the 6, we say 30. If you can't remember that, you could count every one of these little lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. And then you'd write it, 30. The next one, if I imagine this hand going out, it's between the 3 and the 4. And so I have to think to myself, is it a 3 or 4? And then I remember, oh yeah, I got to go backwards one, which is the 3. You write it down. Then you write the 2 dots, the colon. And then you remember, because you're so smart, if the longhand's on the 6, we automatically say 30. 330. Now, your workbook page is the next page that looks like this. You're going to do the same thing with the next 6 problems. But when you get to the hot problems, which means they're a little trickier, as you know, then it gives you the time and you're going to have to draw it. The first part, you got to draw the shorthand. So if I'm drawing the 730, I've got to draw a shorthand pointing between the 7 and 8. And on the 30, you're going to draw the long hand pointing down to the 6. When you draw these, one hand must be short and one hand must be long. The first part of the number is short. The second part of the time is the long hand. Shorthand, long hand. All right? Okay. Now I want you to pause the video and go complete the math pages. Pause, pause, waiting for you to pause. Make sure you pause me and go do the math pages. I want to give you enough time to pause, pause, pause. I'm an entertaining pauser. Okay, moving on. You should have completed the math page by now. Make sure your parent checks you off to make sure you did it right, okay? If they're not home right now or something, have them check you tonight because I want to make sure you did it right, not just you're breezing through it, but you're not doing it right. Make sure somebody checks you to make sure that you're telling time correctly. The next thing on our list is spelling. Let's talk about this week's spelling. This week for spelling, we're not going to do a test, but we're just going to practice the words anyway, okay? So, remember, first of all, let's remember what we already know. When C is next to E, it makes the soft sound, like ceiling or race. When G is next to E, it makes its soft sound, like rage or sage, or when G is next to I, like giraffe. Well, this week for spelling, we're going to talk about when G also says J, but it's with a D in front as well. When a D is in front, it's a DGE word. It also is going to say J. Just like it's a J sound, it's that soft G sound, okay? But we only use that when it's a short vowel sound. A. We do not use that when it's a long vowel sound, okay? So if it was adge, we're going to do DGE. This is like the word badge, okay? If it was, my wife has a great aunt named Midge. It says so we do DGE. But when it's a long vowel sound, then we'd skip the D and just do G. Think of age, also page, rage, sage, and so on. When it's a long vowel sound, A-E-I-O-U, we're going to use just a G-E. When it's a short vowel sound, A-A-I-A, we're going to use a D-G-E. Another popular one is like the word dodge, playing dodgeball. So whenever there's a short vowel sound, A-A-I-A, we use a D-G-E. Whenever there's a long vowel sound, we just use the GE. It's important that you practice this. If your parents are okay with it, they might let you practice on Spelling City. You can put an app on a tablet or phone or go to the Spelling City website. Now, if not, you could just practice tracing the words, which I've included in your packet. The words are bridge, D-G-E, because it says I. Huge, just a G-E, because it's the long sound U. Stage, just a G-E, because it's the long sound A. Judge, D-G-E, because it's the short sound Cage, just a G-E because it's the long sound A. Pull, ooh, got to get the blend in there, the P and the L. Pull, 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 it's a short sound. So we're going to use a D-G-E. Make sure you use an E right there, not an I. That's the E sound. Pledge, D-G-E, because the E had a short sound. Short sound, we're going to do D-G-E. Fudge, short sound, we're going to do D-G-E. Dodge, short sound, we're going to do D-G-E. Age, long sound A, we're going to do GE. And the bonus word is a little bit longer, 2-syllable word, fidget. Fidget. I like to fidget with my markers. Woo! So, so we're going to use DG in this word too. F-I-D-G-E-T. Now you can get out this sheet and trace the spelling words and yeah, do that next. So pause the video to trace your spelling words. Dun, 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 dun. Pause this video. Dun, 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 dun. Pause this video. Okay, you should have paused the video to do your spelling. Now let's move on to writing. Today's writing, did you know people all throughout history, we only know about these amazing things that happened throughout history because somebody wrote down the experience. They wrote down the history. And I'm very interested when I get to read some history of my ancestors. I read about what my grandpa said about a famous event called the Great Depression, where there were people all over the world that didn't have food to eat and didn't have enough money. But he said, since he was a farmer, that it was no problem for them. They just ate the food out of their garden and life went on. And so it was interesting for me recently to read about his experience in the Great Depression. You might find the same thing as you get older. You might have fun reading some history of some of your family. So for writing today, I want you to write your own history about what's going on right now. This coronavirus that's going around the world, we're so lucky that we don't have any of it in Bear Lake. So lucky. And that's what the governor wants to keep happening, and that's why we're not at school. But there's some questions I want you to answer, and then keep this sheet. We'll give it to your parents and have them put it in a safe place so when you're 80 years old or something, you can pull out this sheet and remember when you were in second grade and school was canceled so everyone could stay safe from the coronavirus. It'll be a special historic event that you will have your own record of, which is pretty neat. And maybe your kids or grandkids will enjoy reading it like I enjoyed reading about my grandpa's experience in the Great Depression. So here's the questions. Write today's date. Today's date is March. If you're doing this on Wednesday, as you're supposed to be, it's March 18th. So you could write it like this, March 18th, comma, 2020. You could write it like this, 3/20/20. Or you could write it like this, 3/20/20. March is the third month, and that's why we're writing the threes. And whoops, I keep writing 20. It's actually 18 right here. My mistake. 3/18/20, 3/18/20. These are the three ways you could write the date. Any of them are acceptable. You also can shorten March and write Mar like this. It's another way to write the date. Next question. In your own words, why is school shut down? Write your answer. How do you like doing school at home? Write your answer. What is the best part of doing school at home? Write your answer. What's the worst part of doing school at home? Write your answer. Has anything else you normally do changed, like shopping, Little League wrestling, dance, or church? I know many of you didn't get to do Little League wrestling because they've been canceling it. Some of you probably have dance classes that are canceled. Some of you probably have church classes that were canceled. Has anything you normally do changed besides just school? Write it here if there is. If it did change, do you like it or not? And why? Do you like that it changed? Or do you not like that? And is there anything else that you want to write about? Okay, so fill that out, and someday you might have a lot of fun looking back at your record of when you were about 8 years old, depending on the kid, of of when the coronavirus came to the world and we didn't have school for a couple weeks, or you had to do school at home for a few weeks. It'll be an interesting thing for you to keep. So that's your writing for today. Now, today you just write it the best you can, and tomorrow for writing, I was going to have your parents help you check it and fix any mistakes on it for your tomorrow's writing. Okay, now it's recess time, which you've got to talk to your parents about what they will allow you to do, but I'm saying no screen time right now. So go play outside. Maybe you could play a board game, build some Legos. You talk to your parents and go take a 10, 15-minute break if it's okay with your parents, and go give yourself a brain break. Maybe go outside and play for a few minutes. Maybe play a game or something inside, but no screens right now. Talk to your parents about what they will allow you to do and take a little recess break. Pause the video now. Okay, back from recess. The next thing is to practice reading what we just talked about for spelling. Words that have CE, where the C says S. Words that have GE or DGE, where the G says J. It's called the soft C and the soft G sound. Please read this story, Watching Races. After you're done reading that story, read this week's sight words. Above, again, along, myself, once, piece, something, table, they, and wanted. Already happened. ED, remember we put ED at the end to say it happened in the past. It's already over with, and it's an ending. So here's want, here's wanted. Also on here, I see a compound word, something, like we did last week. Myself. Okay. Read Watching Races and then read your sight words. After you're done reading Watching Races and sight words, your next assignment is to read silently, or to read on your own, I should say. Could be silently or out loud. But here, you might have stuff at your home. I'm totally fine with that. Just get some good reading practice in. You might have library books. You might have your own bookshelf full of books. But I want you doing the reading because you need to practice your reading skills. Remember to read smoothly and quickly. Read with expression like you're telling the story. If you don't have much to read at your house, I provided you a packet full of all kinds of interesting stories. And so you'll have something to read. So look through that and see if you want to read those. If you have another option and you would rather read some stuff that you already have, that's fine too. You guys are going to be great readers, so I don't want you to lose that. Keep on pressing forward. Take the time to read, okay? Read out loud, practice reading smoothly and quickly and with expression. Okay, 20 minutes. Actually, I said 30 minutes. 30 minutes of reading time. After reading time, it's time for some PE. You'll need to talk to your parents about what they will allow you to do, but get a little bit of exercise. Walk in place, do some jumping jacks. Try to get 10 minutes of exercise. You'll talk to your parents if they want you to go outside or stay inside. The next thing on our checklist is community building. We want to connect with our friends, even if we don't get to see many of them. And so I want you to go to Padlet again. Your parents might still have the link on the Remind app from the other day, or you can go to the website I've created, which is secondgrade.blogspot.com. It's right there on your checklist, and the link will be on there. Go to Padlet, and this time I want you to put in to tell us about something you read today. What is something interesting that you read? Did you read a Dr. Seuss book? Did you read about fish or frogs? Or just tell us something interesting you read. You could post a picture of the book that you read. And make sure you take some time to respond to the other kids' posts and say, oh, wow, what an interesting book, or I'm glad you got to read that book. Just try to take a minute to connect with your friends on Padlet, okay? And the last three things on our list, one is our lift time, which is always, we have some learning is fun, right? Learning is fun time. Today, if it's all right with your parents, ask them if you can go to YouTube and watch a Mystery Doug, which, as you know, only takes about 5 minutes. And he has a lot of really interesting videos. Have fun learning something new by watching Mystery Doug on YouTube if your parents allow you. Last couple things on our list. One is have fun. I want you to have a great day. Enjoy your time off. Now that you've got your schoolwork in, go have a good time. Next thing, to be kind. Please, to your parents, to your siblings, anybody else you're around, make sure you be kind today and every day. If you wanted to do Imagine Learning, Imagine Math, IXL, Big Brains, Spelling City, you can access all of those from home. If your parents will let you, you can go to our school website and access those. And it's on the back side of your checklist is the it says optional extras, extra things that you could do if your parents want you to, or if you would like to and they give you permission. That's all I have, and I just hope you guys have a great day. I wish that you were here at school with me, but hopefully we can have you back here soon when we're allowed to be back. And in the meantime, keep on learning at home and keep having fun too. Learn lots and lots and lots. Get your schoolwork done. Have a good time too. All right? And be good for your parents. Be polite, obey them, make them happy. Thanks, guys. We will talk to you soon.